Hello and good morning, guys. Right, we're in Dundee. Staying between here and Arbroath, but there's really not much history in Arbroath. I'm deaf in one ear, so it seems really weird talking at the moment because I can't hear myself talking. I'm sure you can hear me. You usually can. So I'm starting in a place called the Hoff, H-O-W-F-F, a cemetery, right in the centre of Dundee. Some amazing graves in here. I've seen them going back as late as 1603, I think the oldest I've seen. But there's a guy here I wanted to show you. Let's go take a look. So this is the grave of James Chalmers. Who's James Chalmers? He came up with the idea of putting like a stamp on a letter, an adhesive stamp. Yes, he invented the adhesive stamp. Now someone else has tried to claim this, but we're pretty sure this is the right guy. There's been a few books written about it by his family. I'll tell you the name of them. There's some really interesting ones. So his son Patrick, he wrote a book called Robert Wallace MP and James Chalmers, the Scottish Postal Reformers. Sounds fascinating. Honestly, if you don't want to go on Amazon and buy that one, go for his granddaughter's, Leah Chalmers. She wrote a book called How the Adhesive Postage Stamp Was Born. I can't wait to get home and read these. And then in 1971 there was another book published, James Chalmers, inventor of the adhesive postage stamp. Honestly, I can't think of a more exciting book to read than all them three. What a trilogy. What a trilogy. Now, one thing he did get wrong is he said we shouldn't use envelopes because it's more paper. He said you should just seal the letter with this adhesive stamp which I've invented. Like a seal, like they did in medieval times, you know. But that didn't work. They went with envelopes instead. But yeah, he invented the postage stamp. We'll give him that. Somebody else who is buried in here, can't find them. It's massive. It's massive. It's very hard to find some of these. A woman called Mrs. Keeler, and she was the mother of James Keeler and daughter-in-law Janet Keeler. Or she was Janet. I don't know who it is. I don't know who it is. There's someone in here and I don't know who it is. Anyway, the Keelers invented marmalade. Apparently, the story goes, there was a boat coming from Seville. I think that's Spain, is it? Or Portugal, Spain. And there was a bad storm and it had to come here. And all the oranges on board were going a bit rotten. They'd gone past the best. So Janet bought them all. Well, James bought them. And Janet thought, well, I can make marmalade out of them. I know what to do. So she made tons and tons of them. They ended up opening a factory and making loads and loads of money. And they also invented the Dundee cake. But I can't find her. Can't find her. There is some lovely graves in here, though. The best. I've never seen a grave with skull and crossbones on with an actual skeleton laid out. That looks absolutely fantastic. So behind me here is Dundee's Tay Bridge, where one of the biggest disasters in Dundee's history took place on December the 28th, 1879. So I believe this river, I don't know if it's called Tay River, I don't know the name of it, I've no idea. I believe this river is either the longest or the widest or both in Scotland. I can't remember what it said exactly. But the bridge, when they built that was the longest railway bridge in the world going over water. Now, it was built by someone called Thomas Booch, Sir Thomas Booch, but by the time I've finished telling you this story, you'll all agree they should have taken that Sir bit from the front of his name. So he got it all built and they were doing all the safety checks on it. And the safety guys came over and says, look, I think you're going to have to keep the speed limit of the trains down to 25 mile an hour. And before you open it, we'd like to do a bit of a test on it when it's in high winds. Have a train go over in high winds just to see how it performs before we open it to the public. So they agreed, 25 mile an hour, we'll stick to that, but they never did that test with the wind, and they really should have done. So they opened the bridge, One of the people who went over it was Queen Victoria herself. Oh yes, she went over there on a train when she was going back down to London from Aberdeen. Anyway, 6 months later, after it was built, there was a disaster. December the 28th, 13 minutes past 7 at night. People returning home from the Christmas holidays and things, being with family. And there's very, very high winds. They're saying up to 80-mile-an-hour gusts, it was that bad. And I don't really need to explain what happened. It got halfway and it fell in. It all collapsed. Everybody on board died. The first reports were that there were 300 people on the train. And then the ticket master type people said, no, we sold so many tickets and then we let so many on without tickets, so we then did it. And they worked it out about 75 people. But in the end, they only found out about 60 people who they know were missing, and they found 46 bodies. So there's actually still 14 bodies in this water to this day. Before the accident, there were loads of people complaining about the bridge, saying, look, it's shaking when we're going over this. Even the people who worked for the railway company. The trains were going faster than 25 mile an hour because the train drivers were scared of the bridge. They wanted to get over it as quickly as they could. It turns out that this Sir Thomas Booch cut a lot of corners using bad materials, things like that. Now he quoted this job as, I think it was £100 per mile or something he was charging. But everyone else in them days were charging £500. That should have told them, shouldn't it? You know, don't use this guy, he don't know what he's talking about, he's going to use dodgy stuff. But he went on, he did bridges and railways all over Scotland and Britain, and got away with it. So check that Thomas Boucher didn't build the railway near you before you go on it, because I certainly won't go on one of his. So it was the day after the disaster that the first body was found. Remember, it was very high winds, so they were really struggling with the rescue people to get down there, send divers in to try and rescue anybody, or find bodies at least. But they found a body of a lady who was 54 years old called Anne Cruikshanks, and she was a domestic servant 3 miles away from the bridge. 3 miles away, that's where they found her, just a day after. So obviously swept down in the current of the river. But then no one else was found until January the 5th. That's a week later. A whole week they'd only found one body out of 45. So January the 5th they found another body, and then later in that day they found another body, and that was a guy called James, who ironically and rather unluckily, he was just coming back from his father's funeral. How bad is that? Goes to see his old man off and then dies on the way home. That's awful. Just going back to the first woman who was ever found, she was travelling with someone called Mary, and I just have to tell you this. She was described as having a large forehead, a small mouth and a turned up nose. That's not really a nice way to describe someone who's gone missing in the water, and she's never been recovered. She's still in there, poor lass. So it was the 27th of April 1880, the next year, almost 4 months to the day when they recovered the last body. Tragic. Now, I do know that they got the actual train locomotive, the front engine, out of the water, and they even did it up and got it back running. That went back into service. I don't know if they got the carriages out. It didn't say that in what I was reading. So you might still have carriages in there. But it's interesting because you can see, looking at the bridge, where in the middle there, you can see where it did collapse, and they've actually made it a lot stronger than it used to be. But what a tragic thing to happen. The Tay Bridge disaster, Dundee. So I'm here next to a plaque, just on the outskirts of Dundee, a place called Broughty Ferry. And this is about Princess Charlotte. She was the Princess of Britain back in the 1800s. Let me tell you the story. So it was 1816 and the princess was getting married. Oh yes, she got married to the Prince of Belgium, who eventually became the King of Belgium. Princess Charlotte was the daughter of the soon-to-be King George IV. So Princess Charlotte and Prince Leopold, that was the Belgian prince's name, they had sex. They had sex and she was pregnant. She got pregnant really quickly. The whole world was really excited because this was going to be an heir to the throne. You know, George IV was the next king. If this was going to be a son, which they had, this would be the next heir. This would be the next king of Britain. But it turned into a big tragedy because Princess Charlotte, she had the baby, a boy, and he was stillborn. He died in birth. And Princess Charlotte herself died the day after, aged 21 years old. So really, really sad story. The story should end there. This happened, by the way, in Claremont House in England. That's what we're led to believe. Another story, which is why this plaque is here, is that Charlotte and Leopold had been to Belgium having a party, probably a honeymoon, something like that. They'd been to Belgium and they were coming back, and there was a big storm and the ship had to dock in Dundee. Now this is where the story's a bit, is it true or is it not? Because Dundee is a long, long way from England. Why wouldn't it dock further south in England? It doesn't make much sense to me. So it must have been a huge storm, blew them well off course, they ended up in Dundee. So they got here, they must have got a taxi from Dundee to here because it's a couple of miles. You won't walk it, especially if you're 7 months pregnant. Or is it 9 months pregnant? I think it's 9 months, isn't it? Anyway, they got a taxi to here and they found a little cottage or a B&B, one of the two, and they settled in there. But she was just so stressed from this storm, it had really taken it out of her, that she unfortunately died. And lost the baby, as I say, but all because this is what this plaque's saying, this is what Dundee's saying, because of this storm. It stressed her out so much and she died here. But there's no truth, we don't know if there's any truth in it at all. I don't think there is. Probably happened in England, probably Dundee just after a bit of publicity. But a nice story. But when you think about it, if this child had have lived, he would have become the King of England after George IV, which meant Queen Victoria would have never been Queen. Can you imagine the world without Queen Victoria? Everything she did in the Victorian era. It's just unbelievable to think that if it wasn't for a child being lost at birth, she'd have never been Queen. There you go, Princess Charlotte. I've never seen a picture of her. I'm going to look her up when I get home. She sounds gorgeous. Princess Charlotte Augusta. So here are the donations in the last 4 days. We've got Bob Peacock, £20 from my hometown. David Hendry, £2.22. Deshriver Danny, £37. I love your wife, Elke. Oh no, sorry. Deshriver Danny loves his wife, Elke. Mr. Bobo, £10. Torbjorn Lundberg, £4.50. Torbjorn Lundberg, £4.50. Corky, Curtis and Ebony, £20. Long John Silver, £30. Steve Moody and Jen Wood, £20. Martin Curry and Amy, £9. And the girl who works in the hotel where I'm staying, £3.50. Thank you all very, 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 very much. We're now up to £10,501. Keep the donations coming in, people. Diggingthecoast.com and click donate. All the links in the description. Thank you very much. Right, well, I was about to take you to Ballodrun Stone. It's a Pictish stone from the 700s or something, and it's got a dragon on it. It's in a field over there, but it's surrounded by potatoes, quite high potatoes. It's right in the middle of a farmer's field. So instead, I'll tell you this story in front of a load of cow muck. So this is the story of the Nine Middens. Now, there must be something in this story because there's a school and a pub named Nine Middens in Dundee. So the story's obviously spread. Now what happened is there were a local farmer, and he had 9 beautiful, beautiful daughters. Absolutely stunning. You'd want any one of them, honestly you would. Anyway, he'd been working on his farm all day. It was a red hot day, a bit like today, but with less breeze on that particular. It's quite breezy today, so it's cooler. But it was a bit like today, but with no breeze. Worked his butt off, got home. His 9 daughters are sat there, and he slumps into his chair and he says, "You know what? I'm so thirsty I could drink a pail of water." And he says to the oldest daughter, "Will you go over to the well and get me some, love? I really need a drink, a pail of water." She says, "All right, Dad, don't worry, I'll go." So she prances along, looking beautiful, all the way to the well. Half an hour later, she still hasn't arrived. It's not that far. She should be back by now. So he says to the second oldest daughter, "Will you go check on her? I'm really thirsty here. She should be back by now. Just make sure nothing's happened." So the second oldest daughter goes, and she don't come back either. So he sends the third oldest daughter, and he keeps doing this until he's sent all 9 daughters, and none of them have arrived back home. So he's getting a bit cheesed off now, and he's really, really thirsty. So he gets on his feet, drags himself to the well, really mad, really thirsty, looking for his daughters. Honestly, he'd have smacked them on bum if he'd have seen them. He were really mad. Anyway, he gets to the well, and what does he see? His beautiful 9 daughters, all slain, all dead, all cut up, next to the well, in a big pool of blood. And sitting over the blood, sitting over the bodies, licking up the blood, is a serpent-like dragon. So the farmer, he decides he's not that thirsty after all, and he legs it. He runs and runs and runs back to the village, and he's screaming his head off. He didn't want to be killed by this dragon. And he's running back into the village, and all the neighbours are coming out to listen to what the commotion is, and he says, "There's a big dragon over there, a big serpent-like dragon. It's just killed all my daughters, hasn't it? Every one of them, all 9 of them, they're all dead." They're not happy. They're furious. They can't believe some dragons had the balls to do that. How dare it? So they all arm themselves with whatever weapons they can pick up, and they go after this dragon. Now, the ringleader of this mob going after the dragon, he's called Stephen, by the way. And he was knocking off one of the daughters. Dad didn't know that, but he was seeing one of the daughters. So he were really upset. Anyway, the crowd, the big mob go up. And they're looking for him, for the dragon. He sees the big mob coming and he legs it. He's off, is this dragon. He thinks, you know, I'm big, I'm strong, I can breathe fire, I've got massive claws and stuff, but there's about 100 of them. And some of them have got pitchforks. So the dragon legs it, and Stephen, he runs after him. He thinks, "You're not getting away. You've just killed my lover. You've killed my lover." So he chases after him with a club. That's all he's got, like a big baseball bat. Yep, baseball was invented a lot earlier than you thought. The year 700 AD. So Martin catches up with the dragon, starts whipping its butt with this big baseball bat, whacking it as hard as it can. The dragon's like this, cowering in a corner, and all the mob are there, and they're all saying, "Strike Martin, strike Martin, strike Martin, strike Martin." Martin goes on strike, and then he realises they didn't mean go on strike, they meant keep striking him. So he got back up, picked his bat up again, and kept striking him, and they're all going, "Strike Martin, strike Martin." And he killed it. He bludgeoned the dragon to death. Now, the town became known as Strike Martin, and it is now called, true story, Strathmartin. Strathmartin, the name of the town, village. So, whether it's a true story, I don't know, but there's a Pictish stone over there with a dragon on it, and I think it's got like a picture of the Maidens or something, and that's from the year 700 AD, 1,300 years ago. Were the dragons on this earth? You look at Game of Thrones, there's a couple of dragons in that, isn't there? If there were only because they say dragons can live for thousands and thousands of years. If in the year 700 there were only 4 dragons left on the earth, the chances of us actually finding the body of one of them are very, 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 very slim. There could have been dragons. There's so many stories about dragons. Why not be real? You know, we had dinosaurs. So yeah, I believe that story, and I do believe all 9 of them girls were really, really sexy. And I feel sorry for Stephen, because I reckon he had the best looking one of the lot. So yeah, that's the story of the 9 Maidens. Okay, that's me for today, guys. Struggling to get back into it today. I don't know why. Dundee itself, it's quite a big city. Bigger than I expected, and I'm not that comfortable filming in front of hundreds of people. Don't mind the odd passerby, but in the centre of a city it's quite difficult. And it's very warm. Hay fever's coming on again. So I'm going to call it a day, but I think I've got enough for a video for you tonight. I'll be back tomorrow on Digging the Coast. 3, 6, 5...